Hi everyone, I'm Jeremy Yudkin, and this is Tanglewood. Come on. Hello everyone, I'm Jeremy Yudkin. I'm professor of music at Boston University, and I'm here at Tanglewood to tell you a few things about what's going on at the opening weekend of the 2025 season, Saturday, July 5th and Sunday, July 6th. We'll celebrate the 4th, of course, with James Taylor on the Friday, but then the classical season of Tanglewood starts on Saturday the 5th with a Rachmaninoff program. Now, you'll never guess, of course, but Rachmaninoff was Russian. And the other thing you won't guess is that he spent most of his adult life in the United States and Europe. He was born in Russia, he conducted the Bolshoi Ballet, he spent some time in Germany, but after the Russian Revolution, he came to the United States. Now, he was already famous not only for his compositions, but also for his piano playing. He was a tremendous virtuoso on the piano, as we can tell by looking at his piano concertos, which are fiendishly difficult. But after he came to the States, he spent most of his time performing and not composing. And after Rachmaninoff came to the United States, he had to make a living, and he did so by touring and being a piano virtuoso. So he actually conducted and composed very, very little once he was in the States. There are only a small number of pieces that he wrote, and one of them is being played this weekend on July 5th. That's the Symphonic Dances, which is the very last piece that he wrote while he was in the United States and before he died. Symphonic Dances, and that follows the third piano concerto. And our soloist this weekend is Daniil Trifonov, whom the New York Times calls one of the greatest pianists of his generation, and will be accompanied, of course, by our very own Boston Symphony Orchestra, led by our very own Andris Nelsons. But on July 6th, our next program is Beethoven, all Beethoven. Now, we only have a short time, but I could spend the next hour and a half talking to you about Beethoven, because I run a Beethoven Center at Boston University where I teach, and I've written several books about Beethoven's music. But I won't talk for an hour and a half. I'll just talk for a minute or so, because this program is a wonderful program. It starts with the Leonora Overture number 2. Why number 2? I'll tell you in a minute. The third piano concerto. Why the third? I'll tell you that in a minute too. And the Fifth Symphony, which you may have heard of. So, going in order, Leonora Overture number 2. This was written for Beethoven's only opera, the Fidelio opera, which is about a man imprisoned unjustly. His wife comes to rescue him. Her name is Leonora, and the opera was originally called Leonora because she is the heroine of the story. She dresses up as a man, takes the name Fidelio, which means the faithful one, because she is so faithful to her husband. She goes and rescues him from the dungeon. And there are several overtures for that opera. 3 of them are called Leonora, 1, 2, 3, and then the very last one is called the Fidelio Overture. The exciting thing about the Leonora overtures is that they have offstage trumpets. So that about 3/4 of the way through, you'll suddenly hear trumpets sounding from somewhere, and everyone's going, "Where are those?" And that was a turning point in the opera where the offstage trumpets signal the rescue of the imprisoned husband. Beethoven's third piano concerto was, believe it or not, the third piano concerto that he wrote, because that's how they were numbered. The first two were when he was quite young, and the third was after he had moved to Vienna and started to become very well known, both as a pianist and as a composer. And the third piano concerto is a very, very beautiful piece. It's in E flat, and it features the piano and the orchestra talking to each other back and forth. The pianist this weekend is Yefim Bronfman, who is a superb piano player. He'll be playing the third piano concerto, and of course the accompanying orchestra will be the BSO, the Boston Symphony, led by Andris Nelsons. The second half of the program is the Fifth Symphony. Now everybody knows the Fifth Symphony, but the trouble is nobody knows the Fifth Symphony because it's so much more interesting than that opening little gesture, ya-pa-pa-pam. In fact, if you listen very carefully during the performance, you will hear that rhythm in every single movement of the piece, not just the first movement, and that ties the whole thing together. But you have to listen very carefully because it's disguised in certain places. So listen up, Beethoven's Fifth. I wanted to tell you a bit about Beethoven. You know, he is the most famous classical Western music composer in the world, not just in Europe, not just in the United States, but throughout the world. Beethoven's music symbolizes Western civilization. His music is played throughout the Far East, in Japan, in China, especially to mark New Year. And in Symphony Hall in Boston, those of you who have been there will probably notice there's only one bust, one face looking at us on the top of the stage, and that person is Beethoven. So important is he to classical music. Now, Beethoven was born in a small town, Bonn, which was ruled by a prince, and Beethoven's grandfather, his father, and he himself worked in this court as musicians. Ultimately, Beethoven decided when he was in his early 20s that Bonn was too limiting for him, too restrictive, and he moved to the capital of European music, which was Vienna. This was the seat of the empire. There was an emperor of the Holy Roman Empire there. There were aristocrats. There was opera. There were concerts. There was chamber music. And Beethoven found lots and lots of opportunities, both to play the piano, for which he was first very famous, and then to compose and have his works played in Viennese concert halls. Hello everyone, this is Jeremy Yudkin. I'm professor of music history at Boston University, and I just wanted to let you know about the talks I give at Lenox Town Hall every weekend. They're on Friday afternoons and Sunday mornings about the concerts that are going to be held at Tanglewood over the weekend. The talks are sponsored by the Lenox Library. They're held in the Lenox Town Hall auditorium, and they are on Friday afternoons at 2:30 and Sunday mornings at 11. And what I do is I talk about the concerts that are upcoming at Tanglewood in order to help people appreciate them, know what's going on, a little bit about the composers, about the music, so that they'll enjoy the music even more.